depending on whether or not you like Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes, you're going to love or hate what I have to say. But the Colorado Buffaloes are legitimate college football playoff contenders.
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? This is Locked On Buffs. I'm your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You could start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers could place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in, making me your first listen of the day. Like I said, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Let's have some fun. The AP poll came out, some positive Colorado news, but I think more importantly, we realize what Colorado is or is becoming right now, which is a legitimate college football playoff contender, right? I think a lot of people coming into this season saw, from the outside, saw Deion Sanders, Colorado. They go 4-8 last year. They go back to the transfer portal, bring in a bunch of new players, and they're like, okay, it's going to work this time, right? I think for those who are just looking at the strategy and being like, well, it didn't work last time, so why would it work this time? They're not looking at the strategy, or they're not like embracing the strategy in the sense of Deion Sanders went out and got transfers that started, that played, and that were proven. Last year it was like, okay, if you have a pulse, you want to play some Buffalo football, come on over to Boulder and play for Coach Prime. No, it's different. He also made two major coordinating changes, with Robert Livingston, the defense coordinator, being what I think is probably the best hire in college football, or at least one of the best coordinator hires in college football. Colorado is a legitimate football team this year, right? On offense, we always knew what they were going to be. They're a high-octane offense where they could throw it all over the yard. Their run game is a lot better than last year. It's not dynamic. It's not Boise State. It's not Army, Navy, or all these programs, Vanderbilt or whatever, that pride themselves off a powerful running game or a powerful rushing attack. But they're getting usefulness out of it. They just ran for over 100 yards against Cincinnati in a game that they pretty much dominated from the second quarter on. But their defense is giving up 12 less points per game this year than they were last year. And it's nearly impossible to score on them in the second half. So I'm here to tell you that Colorado has a legitimate shot at the playoff. And I think there's a multitude of reasons. For starters, their offense and defense have taken levels and steps forward, right? Their offense and defense for Colorado have taken major improvements to make them so they could contend. You look at sort of where they rank in terms of points in the Big 12, right? Only one team has scored more than them, and they've given up 113 points, which is less than, or there's only 1, 2, 3, 4 teams who have given up less. So 1, 2, yeah, make sure I count that right. Yeah, so Colorado's defense is on one right now. They force turnovers. They're getting to the quarterback. They're doing everything. Not to mention, Deion Sanders put together a really good team, and they have fixed a lot of the issues that plagued them last year, which was ineffectiveness in the trenches, discipline, dealing with adversity. I think a lot of people don't really view this as a major, it's not a stat, so you can't quantify it. But when Colorado was challenged last year, when things got hard, it felt like the team rolled over. This team does not, right? This team, they battle back. They battle at every waking moment possible. And I think we're starting to see just how good they are. Plus, their schedule's favorable. I'm looking at the remaining 4 games, and before the year, I called this the stretch of death. I thought Texas Tech would be a dark horse. I picked Utah to win the Big 12. I thought Kansas would be like somewhere in the top 5, somewhere in the mix. And I thought Oklahoma State, while I thought they were a little bit overrated, I still thought they'd be solid, right? You don't make it to a conference title game and just completely fall off the face of the earth, but apparently you do, because that's what they did. And so I think realistically, Colorado wins these next 4 games, and they're sitting there with a 10-2 record, which is quite the step up. I know, I'll be honest, before the year, I projected them to go 7-5, right? I needed to see this team take the field. I needed to see the improvements. I needed to see Robert Livingston, who had never coordinated a defense. I needed to see him do that. And I've learned a lot about this team. They're resilient. They're explosive on offense. It's hard to find an offense that could keep up with them. And defensively, they're a whole lot better. And realistically, that loss to Nebraska seems like it was a year away. Like, I think if Colorado and Nebraska played again, I honestly think Colorado would win. Maybe convincingly. might I add. And then that game against Kansas State, they had a chance to win. They had a late lead and they lost it. So this Colorado team is much better than I think I expected, a lot better than most people expected. I thought they'd make a bowl game, which I was right about that. But now I think we're talking playoff. And so let's talk about the playoff standings and sort of their path to the playoff, right? Right now, Colorado is sitting in 4th place in the Big 12. If you win your conference and you're in the Power 4, you're in. Colorado has a chance to win the conference, but they'll need a couple things to happen, right? Iowa State and Kansas State play each other. They need Kansas State to lose to drop, and then they need Iowa State or BYU to drop a couple games. Just because if they go into the conference title game undefeated, then I mean it's going to be those two teams. They don't play each other, so it kind of works out funny that way that the two undefeated teams in the Big 12 won't play each other. So you kind of need a little help here and there. But I think if Colorado wins out, they have a legitimate shot at being an at-large bid, right? And I think people are probably going to roll their eyes and be like, why would they want Colorado to playoff? Well, we all know how the playoff works. 4 best conference team or the 4 best conference championship teams. Then you got the group of 5 team in there. And then it's 7 at-large bids, right? And those bids are going to go to most likely the runner-ups in those Power 4 conference title games, or it's going to go to a team like in the SEC who maybe by weird tiebreaker rules didn't end up making the conference title game but are there. Same thing with the Big 10. But I think Colorado has a shot, right? They have to win out, and they need a lot of other things to happen. And a lot of other things are going to happen. I think that's what people aren't realizing. Because if you look at who has to play who moving forward, right? Alabama and LSU, they're both kind of fringe contenders for the playoff. And I think it feels safe to say that 3 losses will eliminate you from playoff contention, at least in this new 12-team format. We don't know for sure, but I think that's what the number is. Once you lose 3 games, you're out is kind of what it's looking like. And so Alabama and LSU, they play each other. They're both sitting at 6-3. So granted, albeit there could be a tie some weird way where they just decide to not play the game. Who knows? But those 2 teams play each other. So one of those is eliminated. Ole Miss plays Georgia, and I think Georgia's probably going to beat Ole Miss handily. And if they don't, I mean, good for Ole Miss, signature win. For Georgia, then they're sort of sitting at 6-2, right? And they're sitting at 2 losses, and it's like, okay, well, this just got difficult. And then Georgia has to play Tennessee, and that could be an elimination game as well. Kansas State plays Iowa State. If Iowa State wins, Kansas State probably falls out of contention. Ohio State plays Indiana. Indiana's ranked 13th right now. I don't feel like they're getting the respect they deserve. So it wouldn't shock me if one loss to Ohio State, if it's convincing too by Ohio State, they drop quite a bit. Texas and Texas A&M play against each other. So there's a lot of things that can happen that could sort of make a path for Colorado. Realistically, the easiest path is them winning the Big 12, which would require some help from their Big 12 brethren, right? You need BYU or Iowa State to drop a couple games. And so I think of the 2 teams, it would probably be Iowa State. I think BYU's path is fairly straightforward. They have Utah next week. They have Kansas the following week at home. That Utah game's on the road, but Utah is terrible this year. They have Arizona State on the road, which I think is probably the one game on here where I'm like, I think they could lose that game. The other couple games, I'm like, I don't know. And then Houston to close out the year. So say they lose one game there, right? I don't, of the 2 teams, I think, like I said, BYU has a clearer path. Iowa State, on the other hand, they have Texas Tech remaining. Then they go to Kansas. Then they host Cincinnati. Then they go to Utah. And then they host Kansas State. If I had to circle 2 losses on this schedule right now, I'd probably say Texas Tech and Kansas State. For Colorado, they'd really need that because Colorado only has 1 conference loss. So then if Iowa State drops a conference game, then it starts getting into point differential and other matchups like that, or matchup factors. And so obviously losing 2 games will just be the easiest way. But Colorado has a legitimate shot at the playoff, which is not something that I don't want to say I didn't think it was possible, but I didn't think we'd be heading into November and me going, yeah, I think Colorado's going to win out and they just need someone else to lose so that way they're in the Big 12 championship. Because this team has taken some major strides, and I think people across the country are starting to realize just how good this this Colorado program is right now. And I think an at-large bid would be interesting, I think it'd be hard to turn down for the TV networks, but we'll just have to wait and see. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make money and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Of course, go get on the action. Go have some fun. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast. Like, subscribe, follow. Make sure to give me 5 stars. I appreciate all the support that you guys give me. Let's continue to have some fun. So, college football playoff path is real for Colorado. I think there's a lot of teams that have to play a lot of interesting games. A game that I think I left out, a couple games. Army is playing Notre Dame. I think if Notre Dame drops another game, they're done. They also have to play USC, which I think would be a tough out for them. So there's a lot of possibilities for Colorado. All they could do is handle their business. And right now, they are doing just that. For the first time this season, and for the first time since the 2002-2003 seasons, Colorado has been ranked in back-to-back seasons. The AP poll dropped, and Colorado came in at number 23. I talked about this last week. I was like, Colorado has a great shot at being ranked, right? I highlighted all the teams that seemed fragile, seemed fragile, and some of them dropped out, right? So let's just go over the rankings. It's Oregon, it's Georgia, it's Penn State, Ohio State, Miami at 5, Texas at 6. They dropped. Tennessee stays locked at 7. Notre Dame moves up 4 spots, which I don't. Notre Dame. I don't understand them. I don't. I think had they not lost Northern Illinois, I would respect them a whole lot more, but I feel like that loss should have probably knocked them out of the top 12. BYU's 8-0. They're sitting at number 9. They moved up 2 spots. Texas A&M moved up 4 spots to number 10. Clemson down 2 spots to number 11. Iowa State is at number 12, tied with Clemson, I guess. Yeah, there's ties apparently. Indiana didn't move. I feel like that was disrespectful. They blew the doors off of Washington, I think it was, without their starting quarterback. Alabama's at 14, Boise State at 15, LSU 16. They moved down 8 spots, so one more loss, and I feel like they're done. Kansas State at 17. Pitt, 7-0, 18. Ole Miss, 6-2 at 19. SMU, 7-1. Then Army, 7-0. Washington State, number 22. Colorado, 23. Illinois, 24. Missouri, 25. So what does this ranking mean for Colorado? Honestly, it doesn't mean much, right? Because being ranked 23rd is not going to get you into the playoff. Being ranked 23rd doesn't mean that you've accomplished everything you wanted to accomplish. But I do think it's a nice reward for Colorado. That being said, Deion Sanders made it clear that, he said he didn't want people to vote for him because I think they like that underdog mentality. I think they like this us against the world sort of no one believes in us stuff, which everyone does. Georgia does the same thing where it's like, no one believes in us. It's like, dude, you've won back-to-back titles. Like, everyone has a belief in you. Like, stop it. But, Colorado, I think, has a legitimate case for not everyone believed in them. But Coach Prime was like, please don't vote for us. Like, we don't want it. I think this is an accomplishment. I think Colorado being ranked I think it sort of shows how far this program has come in just a year and a half, right? Last year, by this time, Colorado was in the midst of a collapse. Like, they were free falling, like, to the max. It was like, okay, will this team ever win again? Will Deion Sanders want to coach college football after this? Is Shedeur Sanders that good? Like, there was a lot of wild questions being thrown around. Now it's like, okay, they're ranked 23rd. There's only 4 teams that are in the Big 12 that are ranked. Colorado doesn't play any of them down the stretch. They only play one team that currently has a record above 500. Like, Colorado, all they have to do, like I said in the beginning, just keep handling business. And you handle some business, and those same teams that I mentioned that are sort of on this elimination block, like LSU or Kansas State maybe, or even SMU if they drop a game, like, there's a lot of room to jump up. SMU has to play Pitt this week, so 18 versus 20. I don't think either of those teams are getting a ton of respect from the voters, so if they lose, it wouldn't shock me if they drop out. SMU also has to play a Boston College team that's pretty good. Cal's decent. Like, even though their records don't show it, these teams are decent, right? And so there's a lot of room for Colorado to go up. They just got to keep handling their end of the bargain because, honestly, I think the way that Colorado is viewed is like almost begrudgingly. It's like people, they're good, but this will happen. Or they're good, but wait until they play. And we're running out of wait untils. And so now Colorado has a minimal room for error if they really want to accomplish everything that they are setting out to, right? Colorado doesn't have room to drop a game in Big 12 play because that will essentially eliminate them from the Big 12 title race unless something crazy happens. And then if they want to make it to the college football playoff and they can't do it as a Big 12 title contender because, say, Iowa State and BYU don't lose, they are unable to slip up. So there's a lot of pressure on what Colorado's on the final slate of Colorado's schedule. But I think it's much more favorable than people want to give them credit for. And I think people are finally unable to say, well, Colorado's good, but wait until this or wait until that happens. Colorado's just good. It's plain and simple. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Travis Hunter. He made some history over the weekend. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Game Time. And let me tell you about Game Time. It's my favorite app to go get tickets because they have all the best deals. They have Game Time Picks, which is a curation process that makes it easier to save even more on sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events near you. They have all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows a total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout, and you could get a panoramic view from your seat with their seat views in the app before you buy, so you know exactly what you're going to be viewing from your seat. It's the perfect way to pick seats for someone like myself who I'm a short king. I know I'm not going to be able to see over people. So if I think I'm at a weird angle or if I don't think I'm looking down enough, I'm not going to be able to see. So, you know, you got to do what you got to do. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Travis Hunter, he does it every week, it feels like. No, I mean, I guess not the past couple weeks, but he answered back in a big way. I think Travis Hunter fell down in the Heisman race a little bit, and now it's like, okay, Travis Hunter is now back as one of the favorites or the favorite. I'll pull up the FanDuel Sportsbook odds for Heisman favorites right now. They have Dylan Gabriel at Oregon, number 1, Travis number 2 at plus. So Dylan Gabriel's plus 230, Travis is plus 270. Cam Ward plus 300, Ashton Genty plus 440, and then it's a monster drop to Cade Klubnik at 1500. So let's talk about what Travis Hunter just accomplished because I don't think we're truly, excuse me, I got the hiccups. I don't think we're truly appreciating what he's doing, which is weird to say because I feel like Colorado fans hype him up and then some national people hype him up. But I don't think we're realizing how special what he's doing is, or I don't think we're realizing how special he is and what he's doing and how special that is. Sorry, that was a tough sentence to get out. He was named Offensive Player of the Week. He had 9 catches, 153 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then he also had 4 pass breakups and 2 tackles on defense. He became the first player in Big 12 history to be named Offensive and Defensive Player of the Week in the same season. Which is crazy because obviously the Big 12 has been around in some capacity for a hot minute. Nobody does like Travis Hunter. I think, and Shador Sanders tweeted this, a simple tweet, really. Give at Travis Hunter Jr. the Heisman. Like, Travis Hunter is showing that he is the best player in college football. I think right now the reason that Dylan Gabriel is the favorite is because of the factor that I've been saying this all along, which is it either has to be a position player that's going absolutely nuts, that's going to shatter records, or it's going to go to the best quarterback on the best team. And if it's not going to the best quarterback on the best team, it's going to a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, Johnny Manziel, Lamar Jackson, who's like doing unbelievable things all the time. And so right now we're sort of seeing like, yes, this is what happens. Like, it's just going to go to the quarterback. I think Travis has a legitimate shot, right? I think Travis is the best player in college football. That's what the award is about. It's not given to, it shouldn't be given to. It is given to in past years. It's not about, like, the premise of the award is not about which quarterback is the best, because then we could just pretend like it's a quarterback award and stop including other players and just have their own positional trophies. Like, stop doing that. Like, let's be real. Who's the best player in college football? Who is making the biggest impact on their team? And I think it's Travis Hunter, right? He's making huge plays on offense, huge plays on defense, and he's leading a Colorado team that was 4-8 last year to a possible playoff berth. So give Travis his respect and get him the Heisman Trophy. Thank you guys for tuning in to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like and subscribe.